Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? Let's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Welcome, fans, to another episode of The Spread. This is your guest host, Big Easy, in the studio today with our baseball analysts, J-Dash and JK47. We're going to continue our preseason baseball roundup, if you can call it that, I guess.
Sure, why not, man?
We broke every team down. There's two left, the Chicago Cubs and our own Pittsburgh Pirates. We're going to start this segment off talking about the Chicago Cubs and about how beast they look.
Yeah, everybody's really picking them to win the most games this season, really. And they did make some big moves. I mean, they brought in Jason Heyward, John Lackey, and Ben Zobrist. And that was their three big deals, obviously. Plus, you got Jake Arrieta. You still got all this young talent on the field as well. But another move they made that was kind of a surprise was re-signing Dexter Fowler. It looked like the Baltimore Orioles had a deal in place with Dexter Fowler, and then it eventually fell through, and Chicago came right back real quickly and signed him. So they got him back. They re-signed Trevor Cahill as well. They signed outfielder Matt Martin to a minor league deal, nothing big there. They signed outfielder Shane Victorino to a minor league deal as well. Do you think he can do anything 47? Do you think he'll even make this team at any point?
I mean, it'd be a nice fourth or fifth outfielder to have. I mean, he still plays decent defense. So, I mean, if you can get at least a little bit from the bat from him, that'd be good. But he's more of an insurance policy, I guess, if Soler doesn't work out, I would think.
Well, I'd also believe that they're going to try to trade Jorge Soler because, I mean, this is still a young guy. This is a guy that somebody wants to start every day, obviously. He costs a lot of money now because, remember, he's a Cuban defector. He's not on one of those pre-arbitration deals where you're making less than $1 million. But, like I said, they re-signed Dexter Fowler. They brought over Jason Heyward. That was an 8-year deal, so he's going to be a part of this team long-term unless they decide to deal him at some point. But it looks like Jorge Soler is going to be their fourth outfielder, but I'd be guessing they'd be trying to trade him at some point, and there have been rumors about him being dealt. And also Kyle Schwarber, there was mentioning of maybe it's him that's dealt and not Jorge Soler, but I'd have to believe it'd be Soler at this point just because he hasn't really broke out at the big league level yet, although he had a good rookie season. Last year he had a down year, though, and Kyle Schwarber had a very good rookie season, and it looks like he's going to be an outfielder from here on out. They signed relief pitcher Manny Parra to a minor league deal. They signed relief pitcher Aaron Crow, and they traded for relief pitcher Adam Warren. That's who they got when they traded Starlin Castro over to the Yankees. And they traded for Rex Brothers as well, a reliever I really like that was in the Colorado system. That's where they got him from, and he looked like he had future closer in him. And they actually ended up releasing him, though, and I don't think he's been signed yet, so that could be a good ad for someone at this point. They also traded for starting pitcher Aaron Brooks, gave up Chris Coughlin to the A's for him, so Aaron Brooks, he's not a big name or anything, but he's all right. And Chris Coughlin, I thought he was a pretty good fourth outfielder for the Cubs last season. Although, I mean, like we were just mentioning, this outfield's stacked right now, so there was really no room for Coughlin at this point. A couple people they lost. Dan Herron retired. Jason Mott, they lost to free agency. Tommy Hunter and Fernando Rodney. So, I mean, those aren't really big losses. No. I mean, Jason Mott, he may close for Colorado this season, and Fernando Rodney is actually going to be the closer for San Diego this season.
See, I've never really been big on him personally.
Fernando Rodney?
No.
He had a couple big seasons there.
He did.
I mean, he was a good closer at one time. I'm not excited about him actually in San Diego. I think Kevin Quackenbush is going to be their closer at some point. Fernando Rodney, I'm not really big on him right now either. But they lost some relief pitching, nothing big. Also, unsigned, Chris Denorfia and Austin Jackson, I believe, is still unsigned. Did he sign anywhere yet?
Yeah, you know what? Austin Jackson, I think the Chicago White Sox signed him to a deal.
So he didn't even leave Chicago.
I think he just kicked rocks to the other side.
There it is. Austin Jackson, he used to be a good player. I don't think he's that great anymore. But let's take a look at this defensive alignment for Chicago. The outfield looks really good. Like I said, you brought in Jason Heyward to a long-term deal. This guy plays Gold Glove defense, and offensively, He gives you not the kind of pop that everyone thought at one time when he was in the Atlanta Braves system. This guy was the #1 prospect in all baseball years ago. And he never really developed that power like most hope, but he gives you a good speed power combination, plays Gold Glove type defense. This is a huge deal, especially taking him away from a division rival in the St. Louis Cardinals. So
I think he's a good hitter. I don't think he's a great one by any means.
he's had his down seasons for sure.
Well, I mean, as you said earlier, he never really developed the power. I mean, the speed is there. One of the problems he's had, though, is staying healthy also, though.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, signing him is actually going to be a little bit of a risk. I mean, but whenever he's in the lineup, he's definitely going to save you defensive runs. I mean, obviously, I think he led the league in that category last season whenever he was at the Cardinals. The rest of the outfield, though, I mean, defensively, I mean, Schwarber struggles defensively and left. So, I mean.
Yeah, well, Fowler's not terrible in center field.
Well, no, not by any means, but I mean. There was a lot of talk of playing Heyward in center field until they brought Dexter Fowler back.
He would have, and Soler would have played in right field. Dexter Fowler, I mean, he had a very good season last year. He's able to take the walk, which is nice for a guy that can hit at the top of the lineup as well. But he's not an elite player either. He's definitely not as good as Jason Heyward, but he also gives you a decent speed power combination, just like Heyward. And like you said, Kyle Schwarber, he was a rookie last season. I actually thought Kyle Schwarber we wouldn't see until maybe this season or next season because he was a catcher and he was not good defensively. So I thought it was going to take him some time, but they decided to call him up. Now, he did get some time at catcher last season. I think 19 games or something he played there. But like I said, he's not a very good defensive catcher. So they called him up early, and they moved him to the outfield. Now their outfield looks pretty beast to me. Although Dexter Fowler, I was never really high on that guy, and he had one of his better years last season. I don't know if he's going to be able to repeat that or not, but I'd be fine with Fowler in center field.
Schwarber, Fowler, Heyward.
Schwarber, Fowler, Heyward.
All right.
I mean, that's very good defensively in right and center field. And then in left field, I mean, he's a defensive liability right now.
Okay, I'm just going to keep this roster in mind to compare later with our own baseball team.
Okay.
But I see that outfield, and I see home runs is what I see.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could get double-digit home runs from Heyward, not mid to high 20s or anything. You could see double digits from Dexter Fowler. Kyle Schwarber's the one that could maybe put up 30 home runs if he plays every day. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, yeah, the outfield looks pretty good. You go into the infield here. The corner infield looks great right now. Although, I mean, you still got questions about Chris Bryant. Not necessarily. I mean, if he gave you what he gave you last year, that's great. But he's actually a better player than that. And obviously, his rookie season, you're going to grow from that. But can he be a 300 hitter like he was in the minors? That's a big question. He's already been able to hit with power like he showed. He's been able to take the walk like he showed in the minors. But he doesn't have that average because he strikes out way, way too much. And you can get away with that in AAA, AA. In the big leagues, you're not going to get away with that, and your average is going to drop some. What did he hit last year, 47?
274.
274. See, he could actually raise that up to a 300 average, I believe, if he can just cut down on those Ks some. But he's never really showed that he could. So maybe he is more of a 275 hitter in the future. Maybe he's a little bit better than that. We'll have to see. But this dude's a beast, and he's going to hit a ton of home runs. And he plays good defense, too.
And he can move around to the outfield, too, if they need him to.
Yeah. They were thinking about putting him in the outfield as well.
Well, he's so young. I mean, the sky's the limit for that dude.
Yeah. He's good on the bases as well. He'll give you some stolen bases.
I think his plate discipline's obviously going to get better. I mean, even if he takes a little bit of a regression this season, which a lot of these players do, actually. So
when you look at baseball, I mean, a lot of players come out and have big rookie seasons, and then the league adjusts to them a little bit, and they have sophomore slumps. So that's kind of why I don't have the Cubs winning the 100 games everybody else is this season. I see a lot of young guys here and a lot of second-year players, actually. So I don't know. I think Chris Bryant's going to be a beast in the future. I just don't see him as a 300 hitter this season or anything. I think there's a better chance he hits less than 275 than a better chance of him hitting higher than 275 this season.
Hey now.
No, but he's going to drive in almost 100 runs, if not over 100 runs this season. It's not like I'm hating on him or anything. And this guy, I mean, in a couple years, if he can get his average up to 300, man, we're talking MVP talk season in, season out. Then at shortstop, Addison Russell has some questions as well if he's going to be able to hit, because he, just like Chris Bryant, he strikes out way too much, and he doesn't take as many walks as Chris Bryant does. But Russell does have the power still, and that whatever he gives you offensively, it really doesn't matter if you have the power like Addison Russell does. I mean, shortstop's not a position where there's a lot of good offensive players. So if you can just have that power, that's good enough. And he plays better defense.
He's a terrific shortstop.
Yeah, he plays great defense. Better. He moved Starlin Castro off of the shortstop position prior to Starlin Castro being traded to the Yankees. You know what I mean? That's how good Addison Russell is at shortstop. And they have Javier Baez as well, who could play shortstop, third base, second base. Now, Baez, same thing. I mean, ton of power, strikes out way too much. We'll have to see about the walks in the future. I mean, he takes some walks right now. He could take more like he did in the minor leagues. But in the minors, he was a terrible defender. He's actually improved since he came to the major leagues. And, I mean, as a backup, it's a pretty good backup because it's a big power bat. And, I mean, that's what you want on your bench. But there's a lot of power on this team, too. So you'd like to have an on-base guy on your bench sometimes when your team's all power as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel it.
But, yeah, it looks good there. And Javier Baez, like I said, he can play around the field pretty much. I don't think he's going to be moved to the outfield, or he's not going to play first base, I wouldn't think. And then how about Ben Zobrist? How old is this guy now? 35, 36 years old?
I'd say 32 or 33. Maybe no older than 34.
Anywhere between 29 and 39.
Yeah, this guy's between 22 and 41 years old. No, he's 34, so you
Ben
said
Zobrist.
32, I said 36, so we were in between.
Ben Zobrist, he's a year older than I am.
Yeah, and I mean, he's already past his prime. And I mean, it
definitely
shows in his bat. Yeah, it does. But he's
Hang him
still,
up, Ben.
I mean, he has great plate discipline. He doesn't strike out too much. He takes enough walks, and he's a very good hitter. And this guy, I mean, I believe he's one of those guys that I like the Matt Carpenter type, you know what I mean? Just gets it done at the plate. No, even though he doesn't put up big numbers in any one category or anything. But Ben Zobrist, there's a lot of questions about his health too. Is he?
Well, where's he at? What's he? What are we talking? Second base.
Second base.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he's slated in as their starter right now.
Yeah. Oh, definitely, man. Ben Zobrist puts up starter type numbers for sure. This is the guy I wanted the Pirates to trade for at the deadline last season.
Mm.
Yeah. So your infield looks good so far, and obviously you have the perennial MVP candidate in Anthony Rizzo at first base. And besides Paul Goldschmidt, probably the best first baseman in baseball at this point. If I was drafting a team, I would take Anthony Rizzo very early behind only Paul Goldschmidt because of his age. I mean, this guy is a monster. And really, he used to not be able to hit left-handed pitching. And they just stuck with him and let him keep getting his at-bats versus lefties, and eventually he figured it out, and that's really when he turned into this MVP-type player. So your team looks good so far. And Miguel Montero at catcher, I mean, he's a solid veteran, if nothing else, an average catcher,
He got a little bit of pop with the bat.
I mean, he gives you a little bit with the bat. Yeah, maybe a little over average. Well.
So, I mean, his backup, too, David Ross, good defensive catcher.
39 years old, I believe he is now.
Former Pirate, actually.
Yeah.
Too.
He actually didn't hit well at all last season.
Well, he hasn't hit well ever.
You also got Tommy LaStella that can play around the infield as well. This is a guy I like from the Atlanta Braves system. He was a little bit older of a prospect. They called him up. He got a little bit of playing time or whatever. Couldn't stay healthy. I like what the Cubs did to bring him over last season. And, I mean, this guy is a solid – he's the type of on-base guy that you're looking for off your bench, and he's a good – utility player as well. He can move around the infield for you.
So it's looking solid there in the infield.
Oh yeah, the infield looks really good. I mean, there's questions
studs on the corners.
There's questions in Bryant. Not that is he going to be good or not. It's is he going to turn from a beast to a complete frickin' monster. You know what I mean?
Sophomore slump is what you're feeling.
Well, not necessarily, man. I still think he's going to drive in close to 100 runs. I'm just saying he's not going to turn into that 300 hitter this season. I think there would be a better chance of him dropping a little bit just this season, though, man. He'll be great. But in Addison Russell, I mean, there's questions about his bat still with the strikeout rate. Ben Zobrist, there's questions about him getting older and his health, you know what I mean? His bat dropping off a little bit. But Anthony Rizzo, there's no questions there, obviously.
It's stacking up.
Yeah, it looks pretty good. And then you look at the rotation, you got the Ace and Jake Arrieta. Now, what he did last season was completely unbelievable in the second half. I mean, he wasn't even in the Cy Young talks in the first half of the season. And then all of a sudden, he just completely dominated. It was like...
blew up like Barry Bonds' skull.
Yeah, what was it? Just a couple runs over 70-some innings or something ridiculous like that. I mean, he went on a complete tear, and really, I've never seen anything like it in baseball. Now, that's why I'm saying he's not going to be as good as last year. I mean, it's just, it has to be a fact. He's 30 years old, and you just can't repeat something like that. But you can still pitch like an ace, you know what I mean? And have a great season. You could still win a Cy Young, and you're not going to have that type of season.
Anytime you have a season like that, I mean, there's usually a slight drop off anyway. I mean,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. But Jake Arrieta, I mean, he's definitely the opening day starter, obviously. And John Lester, this guy, I never considered him an ace or anything, but he's been a 1 or a high number 2 at all times. And, I mean, that's
never ace status, huh?
I never really considered John Lester an ace when he was in Boston. Did you, 47?
Well, I mean, he pretty much was their ace whenever you
I mean,
think
he was
about
their
it.
ace, but that's like saying Clay Buchholz was their ace when that's what they had. You know what I mean? He's not an ace.
He still got the job done, though.
Oh, yeah, John Lester, he's a very good pitcher. He's going to eat up a ton of innings for you as well. I mean, I'm not questioning this at all. Their top 2 are obviously one of the best top 2s in baseball. The number 3, I have a little bit of question with if you're considering your number 3, John Lackey. I mean, he had a great season last year from the Cardinals, and again, a nice move taking a player that did very good last season from a divisional team and bringing them over, so you're taking away from them. But John Lackey, he had a 2.77 ERA last season. Prior to that, though, he hasn't had an ERA lower than 3.52 since 2007. This guy is more of a number 4 to me if you really ask me, but he will eat up a ton of innings too. He threw over 200 innings several times in his career, so I'm not saying he's terrible or anything, but he's not as good as you've seen last year. In fact, a couple years ago, he had a 6-something ERA. So
he's getting rocked this year.
That was also coming off of Tommy John surgery too.
But I'm telling you, man, this guy hasn't put up better than number 4 numbers more than once or twice over the past decade. So, and one of them was last year, and that was in a pitcher's ballpark. Now you're coming over to a hitter's ballpark, man. I see him taking a major step back this season. In fact, how old is he? 37 or 38 years old? I can't remember exactly. He's at least 37 years old, so he's an old guy too. So I don't know. I'm not big on Lackey at all. In fact, I mean, when considering, let's take Mike Leake, for example. The Cardinals brought him in to be their number 5. Mike Leake puts up a little bit better numbers than Lackey. John Neese actually puts up just as good numbers as Lackey. In fact, John Neese has just a slightly better ERA in his career, 0.01 points better in his career. So, I mean, that's the type of pitcher Lackey is to me, the Mike Leake, John Neese type. Is that funny?
No, I feel it. The Leak Neese type. The
leaky knees.
Low 3, not even a 3.
No, not a low 3. I'm saying like 350 or above. 350 is still a high expectation for Lackey, in my opinion. I'm saying more of a 375 type ERA.
All right, so Lackey's garbage. So what do they got in the rest of the rotation?
No, I'm not saying he's garbage.
Oh, he's garbage. I'm saying
they got
garbage.
Jason Hamill and Kyle Hendricks, 2 good back end of the rotation pitchers. In fact, Jason Hamill can give you number 3 type pitchers sometimes as well, and he's pitched very good for the Cubs over the past couple years. And when they traded him to the Oakland A's to get Addison Russell, they traded Jeff Samardzija along with that. But Jason Hamill went to the A's and he didn't pitch well at all. Came back to the Chicago Cubs and pitched well again. So they know what they're doing with Jason Hamill. So he can he can be a valuable pitcher for them this season, obviously. And Kyle Hendricks is always the guy I like at the back end of the rotation as well.
So 1 through 5,
So
all in Lackey.
1 through 5 looks good. I mean, they could use, if Hamill pitches like the number 3 he can this season, then they have their 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If he pitches like the number 4, although I say Hendricks can pitch like a 4 too, so they might have 1, 2, 4, 4, 4 or 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. You know what I mean? But it's still, I mean, it's very good. And the way your offense is set up for the park, I mean, it's a hitter's park, so bringing a ton of power. You're going to hit a bunch of home runs. The pitchers don't have to pitch great every single game when you're scoring 12 runs, you know what I mean? But Jake Arrieta and John Lester, that's going to get them a ton of wins this season.
Mm-hmm.
Then you look at the bullpen. Hector Rondon, closer. He's always been, he's been a solid closer for him over the past, year or two now?
It was a year and a half, I'd say. I mean, he took over for a struggling Carlos Marmol.
Yeah, Marmol completely fell apart. But yeah, Hector Rondon's been a good closer for him. They got Travis Wood out there, Pedro Strop, Trevor Cahill. I think Strop might be the 8th inning guy. And if anything happened to Rondon, he'd probably be the first choice to take over as closer. You got Justin Grimm. Clayton Richards still on that team, actually. And like I said, you brought in Adam Warren in a trade. And you signed Aaron Crow as well. So the bullpen looks solid. It's not as good as the Pirates bullpen, or it's not as good as the Cardinals bullpen. It's probably the 3rd best bullpen in this division. But, with the rotation you got, it should be more than enough. And this team's going to win a lot of games, and they have a chance to win the division or 3rd place. I mean, the Cardinals,
Hey now.
the Cardinals, the Pirates, and the Cubs are all going to win games this season, man. It could turn out anyway.
Well, I definitely could see them finishing anywhere from 3rd to 1st.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, well, then call it. Where do you see him finishing?
Well, I'm going to say,
let's make it official.
Well, listen, over the past 3 years, it's been Cardinals in 1st place and the Pirates in 2nd place.
It has been.
And so, there's a couple rookies from last season turning into their sophomore season. Jake Arrieta is going to take somewhat of a step back somehow. So I'm going to say 3rd place. I got to see it first. Why is it funny?
3rd place.
There's nothing.
Oh, man, you just went through their whole lineup. They got young studs and 2 aces at the top of their line rotation.
I don't believe they do have 2 aces. I just said John Lester's not an ace, but that's my opinion. If you think they have 2 aces, that's fine.
He's an ace. He's an ace in the National League Central all day.
I don't know. That's fine. If you want to say they have 2 aces, that's cool.
They do. I'm saying they have 2 aces, but it's just 3rd
what do you
place.
think? 2 aces, 47?
I'd say a 1 and a high end number 2.
Yeah, you have an ace and a high end number 2.
All right,
or a low end 1. I'll take it either way.
Either
so 3rd
way.
place, not bad.
I'm saying 1st place. These guys I just think are going to mash their way through. I mean, Joe Madden knows what to do with his ball clubs. He's going to maximize what he can get out of John Lackey. I think Hendricks is going to be better in his 2nd full year as a starter. I like Jason Hamill at the back end of the rotation. None of them stand out as far as what you'd look at a piece of paper, but they always seem to get the job done in the end. This lineup though is pretty much second to none. These guys are going to mash their way to the title this year.
There's going to be games where they struggle because you're going to see a lot of strikeouts from this team, but there's going to be games where it's not even a contest because they're just mashing the ball. You know what I mean? But they're going to go on runs of both. I would believe.
But I'm going to say they're going to win about 96 ball games.
96.
I was thinking about this earlier today. The Pirates were down, and they got the prospects. They got the young talent. They made a push, They won a wild card game. They got into a division series and fell short.
Right.
And then in the next coming years, really never took the next step. They fell short to now. I'll straight yins for you though, but Arrieta and Bumgarner. Now, but they still lost those games.
Yep.
So they had that talent, and it really never, in my opinion, they haven't really accomplished anything yet. Now,
Well, from where they were, they accomplished a lot. From where they were,
they accomplished a lot. But you had that talent, and over the last 3 years, it really hasn't panned out to nothing.
Well,
just let me
okay,
finish.
go
Let me
ahead.
finish real quick. Now, Chicago, same thing almost, same deal. Bad, all this young talent, come through. What they do in their little first breakout year,
that's
they
the thing.
win the wild card. You know? They go the whole way to NLCS.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, they made it to the NLCS in their breakout year. All we did was win a wild card game and a couple games in a DS. So, I mean, they've already went further than we've had, and there's no stopping them, dude. First place, they got nothing to lose.
Well, it's like saying, what happened to the San Francisco Giants last year then? That was a team that's coming off a World Series.
It don't matter.
They still had a
What do you think?
All that
the
Pirates went through, the Cubs still got further than us in 1 year than we have in 3 years.
Okay,
it's sad.
What are the Mets going to do this season?
Nothing. I told you
Shut
that.
down the Cubs in the NLCS.
And I told you the Mets were going to take a step back this year. I thought.
Okay.
But
Cubs they turned it around quick and went further than the Pirates and the Cubs. So you should say by that logic, they're going to be better this season.
The Mets also went on a tear last year, too.
They were beast.
Yeah, but the Mets didn't bring in all this young talent from the farm system.
Oh, bull crap, man! Look at their whole rotation.
Well, we're talking about some pitchers. I'm talking about Chris Bryant and Russell and Rizzo, and their whole team.
It takes both sides, man, pitching and hitting. And I mean, you look at the Pirates; they got McCutchen. Well, I guess he's from the system, but he's not from this regime. But you got Marte, Polanco. You got Garrett Cole.
I don't know.
These are studs.
The Cubs have nothing to lose. They're young studs with nothing to lose.
And they have a lot of money.
There should be no pressure on them. Like that. You pick them to win 101 games. Okay, what Vegas says their odds are the best or whatever. That's not pressure in the world of baseball, in my opinion. That's not pressure. That's just like.
What would pressure?
When you play baseball and we all can speak of this. When you know you're good, you just play the game and you win games. Like there's no pressure on you throughout the course of a season.
Okay.
The pressure will turn up once the postseason comes, and who knows what happens after that. But 100 games. They'll win 100 games this year.
Win 100 games.
Mark
it down, huh?
A buck or more. I'll put 50 on it.
I'll say 92.
All right, whatever. Well, any last thoughts on Chicago?
Real quick, I'm going to go over a couple prospects we didn't talk about here.
Right.
They had one of the best minor league systems in baseball. Obviously, they called up a ton of prospects in Addison Russell, Chris Bryant, Kyle Schwarber, and it depleted their minor league system a little bit. They don't have one of the best systems in baseball anymore. But they still have some good players like outfielder Billy McKinney. He's 21. He hit 300 with a 371 on base last year between A and Vince, then Double A. 44 walks compared to 60 Ks and 377 at-bats as well. So he has great plate discipline. He doesn't have much power or speed, though. Just 7 home runs last season and that 377 at-bats. Maybe he can give you 10 to 12 home runs, maybe as high as 15 at some point. But I wouldn't expect it season in and season out. But he should be a starter at some point for the Cubs or another team if necessary. Outfielder Albert Almora, he was a top prospect at one time. He really hasn't hit like he was supposed to in the minor leagues. He was still a solid hitter last year, but really not much power, not much speed. He doesn't take many walks or anything. I don't think we'll see him this season, probably 2017. One guy I do like, though, is Dan Vogelbach. He's 23 years old. He's a first baseman. He hit 272 with a 403 on base last season in 254 bats in Double A. 57 walks compared to 61 K. So he Ks a little bit too much, but he takes a ton of walks, and he doesn't have the Anthony Rizzo type power, but he does have a good amount of power. And over a full season, I could see him getting over 20, maybe even 25 home runs. Like I was saying, he has excellent strike zone awareness. He's a big dude, too, 250 pounds. So I like this guy. It's just he doesn't play good defense at all. So I don't know if he's going to be pushed to a DH role in the American League at some point. I would have to believe that the Cubs are going to try to use this guy as trade bait because really you have Anthony Rizzo, and he's not going anywhere anytime soon. But one guy you could see this season is catcher Wilson Contreras. He's 23 years old. He hit 333 with a 414 on base, 34 doubles, 8 home runs in 454 bats in Double A last season, 57 walks compared to just 62 Ks. So this guy
now,
again,
in what fashion would they bring him up? Like injury or just replacement? I mean,
well, right now they have Miguel Montero as the starting catcher. Behind him, like he was saying, they have David Ross. He's 39 years old, so you could see them calling him up later in the season to maybe play as the backup catcher. Or they could wait till next season if David Ross is having a solid season. But yeah, if there was an injury, Wilson Contreras is ready for the big leagues, I think, and he could be called up and contribute to this team. Dan Vogelbach, when they go play in the American League, he might get called up to be the DH. I think that's a real possibility. That's what they did with Kyle Schwarber last season. Vogelbach's a good hitter, so I could see them doing that as well.
And plus, it gives these young guys ABs and not really like, I mean, it's not do or die situation.
Right.
DH, it is what it is.
And one last guy here, Carl Edwards Jr. He's a relief pitcher. He was actually a starting pitcher at one point, but he's a smaller guy, and they don't think he's going to be able to last. He's 24 years old. He needs to work on his command a little bit. 41 walks in 55 innings, but he did have 75 Ks as well. His stuff will play up in the bullpen, though, so he could end up being a future closer at some point. We'll have to see, but he still has to work on that command. Even as a relief pitcher, 41 walks in 55 innings.
Tell you what, just
isn't good.
Allowing just 26 hits is pretty impressive.
Yeah, well, that's when you hone in that control, though, your hits are going to go up a little bit because when you're just so wild, you're not going to give up many hits because people aren't even swinging the bat. But that's it.
So it's spread split.
You got 2 first and a third.
That's it. 2 first place and a third place finish for the Chicago Cubs fans. If you got any comments, any questions, you can hit us up on Twitter at bet_the_spread. Go to that Facebook page, find us out, the spread on there. Like that stuff.
Like it.
Go to Twitter at bet_the_spread. Do whatever you need to do. Chicago fans, you got a good year. Look, it's looking good. I think it's looking good for you. But you know what? It's gonna be competitive. Don't get me wrong. You're not gonna just blast through everybody.
I wouldn't think so.
But I can see 100 games, and I can see it's gonna be very competitive. That's it. We got one more segment to go. Pittsburgh, what's up?